YouTube people, what is going on? Northeast Ohio Cards and Comics here. Today for a little uh PSA grading video-ish, whatever. Uh with the new Express level rolled out this week at $150, I just kind of wanted to run through a couple cards and see, kind of work through the math and kind of see, does the $50 decrease in price change much in regards to kind of what you would send where and kind of, how I would approach if I had one of these cards, what I would look at to determine where I should send it for grading. But for the purposes of this, we're going to mostly talk PSA, SGC, because at present time, those are the two best options to grade with. SGC, $30 a card, around 2 to 4 weeks turnaround time. A couple people in my comments were saying that their stuff's been running closer to 3 to 4 weeks lately, but I've heard anywhere from 2 to, let's just call it 4. So 2 to 4 weeks with SGC, $30 a card. PSA, we're going to go with their new $150 Express level, and we're going to assume a month because that's what they said. Their goal was to churn it in 30 days. Okay. For the purposes of this, we are not going to worry about shipping, eBay fees, all that sort of stuff, insured packages back and forth to grading. We're just going to assume that all that stuff levels out in the wash because it's going to be pretty much the same regardless of what you're doing. And I just want to keep this math as simple as humanly possible. I got 4 examples up here, some basketball and some football, and I went with more recent stuff, 2020 Prism, mostly basketball and football, because I wanted something that had a decent amount of SGC comps, and these are cards that do. So we can get a pretty fair comparison here. First up, some of these are going to be plain as day. Now, before we get into the first card, which is going to be a Joe Burrow base Prism. Let me zoom in a little bit on this here for you so the people at home can see the numbers a little bit better. For the purposes of this, all I care about is this ending average column. I'm not worried about the ups, downs, all arounds. I just care about what the cards are most recently selling for in their various forms. So we don't care about the percentage changes, how many days the chart's for. Don't even care about the chart at all. The only thing that kind of changes the equation here is how you acquired the card. If you bought it raw, that's one conversation. If you lucked out and got a $20 blaster box at Walmart or on Target.com or whatever, and you ripped it and you're only into these cards for, let's call it retail amount, that's going to change the math a little bit. So we're going to kind of need to look at these 2 different ways because I don't know what your cost to the card, into the card is. So for the purposes of this, for raw value, we will go ahead and assume that you paid fairly close to what the ending average is. Maybe you got it a little bit below that, but we'll just generally use the number that's in Market Movers for raw. And then we'll also assume like a baseline, I don't know, $30 cost for a blaster if you found it on the primary market, the non-secondary market. But essentially, if you just have the card laying around, it changes the math a lot more than if you don't have the initial cost to purchase the card individually at a show or on eBay or whatever. So kind of keep that in mind. So first up, Burrow base Prism Raw. Resales for about $40 right now, give or take. In an SGC 9, it goes for $75. So if you sent this into SGC, it would cost you $70. $40 for the card, $70 to get graded. At an SGC 9, you essentially break even. Probably lost a little bit, but once again, we're not factoring in eBay fees and all that nonsense. Let's just keep it simple. Let's say you're selling for cash at a show. PSA 9, $77. So obviously massive loser there. If you paid $40 for the card plus $150 to grade it, you're in it for $190. So you're in it for $190 with PSA, and you're in it for $70 with SGC. SGC 9.5 does not sell that much more than an SGC 9 in this card. Only $5 difference. So once again, you're basically breaking even. SGC 10 goes for $150 and a PSA 10 goes for $330. The reason I pulled this card is this is a clear case of a card that is pretty spot on perfect for SGC in my opinion. It's around a $40 to $50 card raw. In a 9 or a 9.5, you break even because 9's $75, 9.5 is $80. So you can essentially break even on that card. And then on a 10 is where you make your money. $150 on a 10. You essentially double up for every 10 that you hit. So $70 to grade it, or $70 to buy it, grade it. If you get a 10, you double your money. If you hit a 9 or a 9.5, let's just call it a wash to keep things simple. So say you send in 10 of these, you only need to hit a 10 on a couple of them. You hit a 10 on 3 of them, you double up on those, and you wash out on the rest. You made $350. I'm sorry, $450 off those 10 cards. So 100% very viable, perfect card for SGC. This is not a card you should be sending to PSA. Sure, in a PSA 10 it sells for $330, but you have $180 into the card, so your max profit is $150. You could have just sent it to SGC for the same $150. So as I like to say, people say I bash SGC all the time, and I don't like them. They're not typically for me in regards to buying slabs to flip or resell, but grade to flip, I've said it a million times, they are 100% a play. You just need to send them the right cards and do your homework like this. This right here is like the perfect baseline card to grade to flip with SGC. It maths out perfectly. Your 9s and your 9.5s you break even on, you double up on your 10s. 100% not viable in PSA right now at current prices. So, example number 1, around a $40 card. And once again, comps are going to vary. So don't just assume that it's a $40 raw card. Exactly means that it's going to, every $40 raw card is going to math out like this. That is not always going to be the case. Let's look at the next one. Justin Herbert. Same thing, 2020 Prism. This is the card for those that don't know it. $75 raw. Okay. So a little bit more expensive for raw. So in a SGC slab, this is going to cost you, let's just call it $105 to grade this card. So $105 in SGC is your baseline number. PSA, it would be 150 plus the 75. So you're looking at 225 for your PSA number that you're into the card for. And once again, this is assuming that you are buying the card raw for at about fair market value. You go to a show, someone has a couple really nice clean Herberts, you pick them up, you get them home. Now what do you do with them? Let's run through the numbers really quick here. SGC 9 goes for $90. So if you get an SGC 9 in this case, you are losing a little bit of money. You're losing $15 per card on a 9. So not great, but not potentially the end of the world because there's going to be a little bit of risk in these. SGC 9.5 clocks in at let's just call it 115 to keep the math simple. So on that one, you would make plus $10. So you're essentially breaking even on that one. Once again, eBay fees, shenanigans, but we're not really factoring that in. PSA 9, $150. You are losing on that one. Negative $75 for every PSA 9 that you get. SGC 10, $300. So you're making plus 200 on every 10 that you hit. Plus $200, 105 to grade it, selling it for around 310. Let's just call it $200. Keep the math simple. PSA 10, $550. So you're looking at, what would that be? $345 profit on a PSA 10. So if you send this into SGC and say you send 10 of them in, you get 5 10s and 5 9s or 9.5s. Let's say the 9 and 9.5s wash out. So, the 9.5s you're making a little bit of money on, the 9s you're losing a little bit of money on. So let's just say that washes out. So you send in 10 Herbert Prisms, 5 get 9 or 9.5s, 5 get SGC 10s. So on those 5, you are plus $1,000. So you made $1,000, sent in 10 cards, got 5 10s. The other stuff was 9s and 9.5s. You broke even on that. Maybe took a slight loss, whatever, but the numbers are close enough. We're doing some loose math here. And then on the 5 10s, plus $1,000. Not bad. Plus $1,000 out of it for a 30-day flip. Pretty good. Pretty good. Now, this is also assuming nothing changes in season, all that jazz. This is more stuff that you would want to do during the off season, in my opinion. So with PSA, You send 10 cards in. Let's say the same exact thing happens. You get 5 9s and you get 5 10s. So with the 5 9s, you are negative $75 on every one that you send in. So you're in the hole $375 on the 5 9s. Make sense? $75 loss times 5, $375. You're in the hole. Okay? On the 10s, you make $345. So you hit 5 10s. That is $17.25 profits. Then you subtract out your $375 loss. You are plus $13.50. So pretty close. Now, this is one of those ones where if you're just sending one card off, it gets a little trickier. If you're sending multiples off, taking a larger shot, law of averages, all that stuff, a little bit of a different story. If I was just sending 1 or 2 cards, depending on my confidence level, I could see just leaning towards SGC and limiting the downside risk. It just depends. Go big or go home, or go a little bit riskier. So once again, using that example with 10 cards, if you sent 10 cards in, you whiffed on 5, you nailed 5. With SGC, you'd be up about $1,000. With PSA, you'd be up about $13.50. Now, the difference is you're also putting out more money on the PSA side because you're doing $150 per card. So your grading fees are exponentially higher. With PSA, you don't pay until the cards ship, whereas SGC, you pay up front, whether that matters to you or not. It's only a 1-month turnaround time with both, basically. So it's not like that should impact you one way or the other. So this one, to me, I'll be curious for your thoughts and comments down below. This Herbert, to me, is very borderline. I can see someone making a case to go absolutely either way on this one. And like I said, it might depend on exactly how many you're sending in. If you're just sending in 1, it might not make as much sense to go with PSA because you don't want to take the downside risk of losing $150, or I'm sorry, losing $75 per card sent in on the submission if you catch a 9. So once again, just kind of depends on your risk level. And that's what a lot of this comes down to, especially on these borderline ones. To me, this is a very borderline one. And then, maybe you have some personal bias if, you know that you can walk into a shop and move PSA slabs a lot easier, or you have a local dealer that you could go to that you can move SGC slabs to. Whatever, your local show, no one likes SGC, they all like PSA, or vice versa. Those are other factors you need to take into. Are you just going to put these things on eBay? If you put them on eBay, this is the other thing you have to keep in mind. Specifically with SGC, people always say, any SGC group you go into will say, do not run SGC cards at auction. You have to run them best offer, buy it now. So if that's the case, now you got to post one up and wait to a buyer to come to you. Whereas with a PSA slab, you can confidently auction that and usually have a pretty good idea of where it's going to end at. So you can slowly auction off your PSA slabs, put one up every couple days on like a 5-day auction, whatever, and constantly have those selling and coming back in again. With the SGC slabs, you got to post it and you got to sit on it and wait, potentially, because there is still liquidity issues on the back end with SGC. They do not move as fast as PSA, and a lot of people will tell you not to auction them off. You may get a little bit more variance in the resale prices on those, but that's up to you. All things to factor in. But to me, this is a very borderline card. This is very, very close. Let's look at Lamello Ball base prism. $50 raw, $60 in a 9, SGC 9, $100 in a 9.5, so a lot more respectable in a 9.5 here. SGC 10 goes for $260. PSA 9 goes for $225. So a big amount in a PSA 9. And a PSA 10 goes for $850. Now, this is one that is slightly constrained on the pop side of things, especially on the PSA side, because there was not as many submitted to them. So this card gets a little tricky. So if you get these back, you need to sell them fast and not sit on them. But if you're buying these raw to send in the grade and then to flip, that's what you should be doing anyways. It's not like you're getting this card back and then planning on sitting on it for a few months. As soon as you get it back, you're going to sell it. At least that should be the plan. So raw, 50 bucks. So 80 bucks a card to grade it. An SGC 9, you're losing pretty hard on. You're going to lose 20 bucks. But a 9.5, you're going to make about 20 or 30 bucks on. Not too terrible. SGC 10, you would make about 170 a card, give or take. Pretty respectable. Once again, 30 bucks to grade it, sell it for 260. Nice little return on that. PSA side of things, this one's actually, because of the spread and the prices that those are selling for, actually, in my opinion, this one probably is going to favor PSA. A PSA 9, so 150 bucks to grade it, 50 for the card, you're in it for 200, actually sells for a slight profit of 225. Let's say that even pulls back a little bit and you could still get 200 a pop for it. As long as you could break even on the PSA 9s, that's the key. To me, that's the line of demarcation. Can you break even on a PSA 9, or at least close to breaking even? If yes, it should probably almost automatically go PSA's way, because the 10 value is going to be so much more. And you could see it there. In a PSA 10, it goes for $850. So you are making $650 for every 10 that you hit. So once again, if you sent in a bunch of these at $650 profit per 10, you don't need to sell very many to make a ton of money. And once again, with the caveat on this one, that this is an artificially low card because not as many have gone the PSA. So there's an extra premium put on the PSA because there's limited supply at the moment. That will change over time. This, if you're going to do something like this, this would be very much sell it as soon as you get it back. The other thing with this is that it will slowly come down. It's not like it's going to crash overnight. But even if it came down to $600 a card, say it dropped $250, you're still making $450 or $450 a card on a PSA 10. 150 to grade it, 50 for the raw card, sell it for $650. You're up $450 on every 10 that you get. On the SGC side of things, you're up like $175 to $180 for every 10 that you get. So to me, this is a no-brainer PSA call. Like I would not even hesitate. I would send these to PSA as fast as possible, and then try to sell them as fast as possible, with a little bit of risk in there that the price does come down. But like I said, you have a lot of wiggle room there for that price to come down. That price would need to come down almost $300 for it to start to wash out. And even at 300, you're still making a little more with PSA, like an extra $100. So, and as long as the nine is the key. That's the one you got to pay attention to. As long as you can become close to break even, you can have a little wiggle room on the 9. But even with that big of a premium put on the 10, you could be a little bit riskier because maybe you lose a little bit on the 9s, but you're making so much on the 10s, it's worth it. But this is the range, in my opinion. That's that magic little section where a PSA 9 equals or close to break even if it's a little under, a little over, right at break even. To me, that's when you want to go the PSA route over the SGC route. Let's look at one more. I put a little bit of a higher end one here just for the hell of it. Anthony Edwards, 2020 Silver Prism. Raw, $250 card. There are no SGC 9 sales of this. So we have a 9.5. Let's assume a 9 falls right in the middle. So a 9 would go for, let's say, 300. An SGC 9.5, let's call it 350. And an SGC 10 goes for an even $1,000. And this was all fairly around the same time. The raw sales are a little more recent, but all the graded sales were within a few days of each other. So $250 for the card, 30 to grade it. On a SGC 9, you are barely breaking even. On an SGC 9.5, you are making a slight profit. And on an SGC 10, you're actually making about $700. So that's pretty solid. PSA, $250 for the card, $150 to grade it. So you're into it for $400. A PSA 9 sells for $400. So once again, we are at the magic number of it breaking even on a PSA 9. PSA 10 in this card, $1,550, almost $1,600. Well, it's right in the middle. Let's call it $1,500. Keep the math easy. So you are into it for $400. So $1,100 profit on a PSA 10 versus a $700 profit, $720 profit on an SGC 10. So for me, once again, this one, and we see that magic number again where PSA 9 equals break even on the PSA 9, and the PSA 10 sells for such a premium that it is worth it to go with PSA in this case. And with this one, I'm not as worried about pop counts totally going astronomical on these because it's silver prisms. Those are always relatively in somewhat control. Yeah, it's going to go up, but it's going to go up across the board. And silvers are always going to have high demand. So I am less concerned with this one like I was with the Lamello base one. Silver prisms, even on the more modern stuff, still have fairly reasonable pop counts, especially when you factor in the demand side. So, and as we talked about, these are things that you are going to be looking to sell as soon as you get them back anyways, not hold long term. So you don't really care if the pop count goes crazy in the next year. You only care if the pop count goes crazy in the next, let's call it 4 to 8 weeks. And stuff like this, Anthony Edwards silvers, Lamello bases, these are perfect things to be sending off now because you're going to get them back in a month or right before the NBA season starts. So what's the big takeaway here? I talk about this all the time. If you could break even on the 9s, PSA 9s, if you could break even, go with PSA. If it's a massive loss on a PSA 9, go with SGC. Still do the math because it is going to vary on individual cards. You can't just go by, every $50 card makes sense with SGC because that's not the case. On a Burrow here for around 40 or $50, it does. On a Lamello, it doesn't because of the population count differences and whatnot. And once again, that will correct a little bit, but basketball also has a lot higher demand than football does, so it'll take a little bit more for that to kind of swing. So I hope this was helpful for you boys and girls. Like I said, to me, the biggest one that was close was the Herbert one. That's the one where if you sent 10 of them in and you got 5 10s and 5 9-ishes for SGC, you'd make 1K. On PSA, if you got 5 9s and 5 10s, you would make 1350. I could see the arguments for both sides of the fence on that one, on what to do with that one. Personally, what I would do, be a no-brainer for me, I would lean the PSA route because I would have better confidence, and maybe this is just my own personal experience, I would have better confidence in being able to resell the Herberts and PSA slabs faster than the SGC ones. But that might be different for you. So let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I'm very curious for your thoughts on the Herbert one. Which way would you go? So like, comment, sub. Catch you guys and girls tomorrow for the week in review. Peace.